O să-l invit acum la microfon pe cel pe care l-ați numit deja, Jean-Pierre Loubinoux, CEO onorific al Uniunii Internaționale a Căilor Ferate.
Okay. Hello, do you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
On vous sent bien.
You can hear me. Very good. Very good. Thank you. So, thank you very much, dear colleagues and Romanian friends. Dear Dan, it was a pleasure to see you again through this screen. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be again invited to share some of my experience and views on the rail sector challenges ahead of us. The rail system constitutes a physical web of infrastructure crisscrossing regions, countries, and continents to bear and boost the mobility of our modern societies and the exchanges of goods and people. What we can observe nowadays in a geopolitical context is not really encouraging. Geographical fragmentation, political instability, economical disintegration, and nationalistic focus. All of this should not be in favor of the development of rail infrastructure, which needs, more than any other, interoperability, high long-term investment, space and time stability. But because of some of its fundamental values, capacity, safety and sustainability more and more, research and innovation, social impact on land planning and growth of GDP wherever it develops, the need for rail is growing in the vision of our national, European, or overseas politicians. In the planned investments for mobility, the share of rail across the world is increasing to an unprecedented level of 40%, and more than $5,000 billion will be spent in the next decade for rail major projects to meet this expected growth of mobility needs. So in this 21st century context, rail is facing 5 major challenges. First, the very notion of transport has changed into the notion of mobility, which itself is becoming a need for accessibility. In other railway terms, it implies that interoperability has transformed into intermodality and even further into modal integration. We must now think in terms of logistic chains, wherever for freight or passenger traffic, in order to overcome all barriers and frontiers, technical, physical, modal, legal, or even cultural. Transport, with rail as its backbone, should be conceived as what I used to call in UIC a SISICON, sustainable, integrated, connected, international chain of mobility. In this modal chain, the management of interfaces between different systems is becoming crucial in terms of operation and infrastructure connectivity. Number 2 challenge, fast-growing urbanization. 2 billion people are getting urbanized until 2030, mainly in Asia. 43 megacities will have a population over 20 million. This must and will multiply urban congestion, already costing $200 billion per year, and increase CO2 emissions by 300% in the next 10 years. This boom of intracity mobility will call for high investments. The expected need is equivalent to the 6% of the GDP, when at present only 0.5% in average is spent, and maybe 1 and 2% in developed countries. But the solution to this challenge is not only money. Intelligent connectivity with the growing role of IoTs is another key to manage first and last miles mobility, as just done mentioned. Number 3, the evolution from a strategy of modal competition pushed in the 20th century towards a strategy of complementarity between modes. And this is an evident challenge in order to create new chains of mobility, new services which will improve quality and productivity. This intermodal cooperative approach is not easy to achieve when at the same time intramodal competition is still demanded at European level. Developing an intelligent mobility mix for an optimized and sustainable transportation system can contribute to a large number of the strategic development goals highlighted by the UN report on mobility. We have all together to go from mitigation and reduction of CO2 of each mode to the adaptation of a resilient integrated transport system. The fourth challenge is not to miss the benefits of the ongoing digital revolution and maximize its impact in terms of productivity, predictability, and connectivity in order to improve capacity and services again. Through the information technology evolution, 100 billion IoTs in 2030, machine learning, cloud, blockchain, quantum computing, it is estimated that between $10 to $15 trillion will be added to the global GDP in the next 15 years. This will impact services with information and ticketing, predictive maintenance of infrastructure and rolling stock in order to reduce the life cycle cost objective 50% reduction, satellite signaling and capacity of big and small lines, helping the objective to double capacity, and cybersecurity. In this big data world, everything needs to be conceived and anticipated cleverly to be connected properly. Now, fifth challenge, the development of new corridors. And it is not last but least a fantastic challenge in terms of international cooperation and long-term financing. In Europe, of course, with the 10 corridors of the 10T program, crossing all Europe and linking Southeast Europe with Central Asia, but also with new ones such as Rail Baltica, Finland, Caucasus, Ebre in Spain. In other parts of the world, the Bio-Oceanic Corridor in South America, or the Trans-Siberian, or of course the Obor Silk Road. This latter one is probably the biggest challenge of the 21st century, certainly in a complicated geopolitical context. But in 2014, there were only 300 trains linking China to Western Europe. In 2020, there are 4,000 trains. And the market share of rail is still only 1% in a market of exchanges of goods, which is worth $1,000 billion every year. So, these 5 major challenges in a changing world are important in order to meet the demand in terms of capacity and quality of services. All modes therefore should work together and focus on 6 major issues: social and economic impact, environmental goals and level playing field approach of their externalities, management of interfaces between intra and intermodal, renovation of existing infrastructure, construction of missing links to achieve longer international corridors, and better management of assets and capacity thanks to digital intelligence. All of this, of course, in a visionary and peaceful world, which was already the dream of a French writer, Victor Hugo, who once wrote in the 19th century, and this will be my conclusion quotation, as a dream. One day will come when there will be no other challenge and battlefield than markets opening up the routes of exchanges and ideas opening up the gates of intelligence. I thank you again for your invitation and for your kind attention. Molto mece.